Every man carries the weight of the world on his shoulders. From the weight of frustration to not being able to find a job, to the weight of lethargy of not being able to sleep at night with that newborn baby, to the weight of rage to that girl that betrayed you after you gave her your heart. And worst of all is the weight of carrying the fact that you know you're not living up to the strength that is within you, not being the strongest version of yourself. And all of this resistance accumulates. It grows so heavy that your body feels like it's going to break. So what do we do when we feel like we're on the brink of destruction? What do we do when we feel like the weight has become so unbearable? We need to learn to lift that weight. Not because of who we are now, but because of who we know we are to become. Don't you ever let somebody tell you you can't do it. You have a dream, a purpose, you gotta protect it. It's the people that can't do it themselves that'll tell you that you can't do it. You can do it, period. You see, it's impossible not to feel pain. But to not feel pain, you have to live too cautiously to even be living at all. You see, you may not get that job the first time, or the next one, or the one after that. But here's the thing. You don't quit, you don't give up. You get back up and prepare for the next one. You see, the biggest enemy you have to deal with is yourself. You don't have to personally be perfect to do great things. You just need to want it bad enough to get up and do something about it. You gotta dig deep down within you and ask yourself, who do I want to be? Not what, but who. Now just look at your challenges like the plates that you slap on the barbell. Your failed relationships, adversaries that attack you, your broken heart, lost job. When you look at them this way, you see a way to overcome them. Now God doesn't send troubles to you, but just remember that each one of these obstacles are designed to strengthen weaknesses within your own character. Stop running away from your challenges. You see, it's easy to be on the bottom. It doesn't take any effort to be a loser. But you see, the opportunities that come into your life mean nothing unless you take full advantage of them. It's with repetitive action that you get stronger. And in that same way, by overcoming obstacles in your life over and over again through faith, you get stronger. Once you understand this, you not only accept these challenges, but as men, you beg for them. But now that you know you can do it, go out there and lift that weight.
Welcome everyone to the second edition of the Real Men CEO series. Wow. I'm so excited. I've been looking forward to this for so long, for 2 weeks. We had a great time 2 weeks ago with Victor Buddy Lawson. We had great reviews. People said it was a great show, and this one promises to be just as good. Welcome as you're coming in. I want to ask you all as you come in to please share this link. It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. And you don't want to keep this for yourself. So please share as you come in, tag somebody, make sure that you can bring people in because this is going to be great. before we get started, I'm sure there's a lot of people that followed us. Welcome to all our regular followers. God bless you. But there's also a lot of people who are tuning in for the first time. I want to say thank you for coming in and watching for the first time The Real Men on the CEO series. I just like to give you a bit of background as to The Real Men. It's a movement. It's that is determined to empower, strengthen men out there that are dealing with issues, to uplift men all around there. You know, we as men, sometimes we go through stuff and we don't speak. So we created this show to bless men, to strengthen men, to uplift men. And we are part of Powerhouse Ministries International, which is based in Eindhoven in the Netherlands, but we have branches all over the world, in the US, in Jamaica, many cities in the Netherlands as well, Eindhoven, Tilburg, Amsterdam as well. So we have a great ministry. So please come and ask for more information about us. I'd like to honor our visionary of the ministry, Apostle Paulette and Apostle Orlando. We bless them. We thank you. We thank them for allowing us to have this program where we can go out and look for men out there who are ready who have a message to encourage and uplift men. And we have a very special guest for you. I'm sure you've already seen it through the flyer. His name is Eniton Denloye. But before I bring him on, I would like to remind you guys, please share the link. We want to get as many people as possible. Also remember that this is going to be live. It's going to be able to watch it also after the live is over. So if you share and you tag to somebody, they can also watch it even though they missed the live session. So before I bring my guest on, I'd also like to introduce my fellow co-host, Apostle Douglas. You're welcome.
Blessings. It's an honor to be here tonight. Thank you, Brother Depot.
Yes, and also Evangelist Regilio.
God bless you, man of fella. I am excited for tonight. I am really excited of tonight. So let's go.
Awesome. Apostle Douglas, we were speaking backstage and you said, what we're doing on here, that God already showed you that in your quiet time today. So maybe you can share with us.
Thank you, brother. Yes, I was doing my devotional at work and on my break time. And it came across me, Hebrews chapter 13, verse 16. And it said, make sure you do not take things for granted and go slack in working for the common good. Share what you have with others. God takes particular pleasure in acts of worship, a different kind of sacrifice that take place in the kitchen, in the workplace, and on the street. Don't take things for granted. Share. And I think tonight, what we're doing tonight, the guest speaker he's going to share a lot of knowledge and wisdom that we can receive tonight. So I'm excited, and I'm thank God for just putting all this together. And I'm excited. Let's go. I'm ready. I'm ready to jump into it, brother. I'm ready.
Awesome. Let's go. Evangelist, can you play the intro video before we welcome the guest?
Yes, let's go.
Aniton Denloye stands as a luminary figure in Africa's business landscape, renowned for his strategic acumen and transformative leadership. With a career spanning executive roles in prominent telecom companies, Aniton Denloye has been instrumental in shaping the industry's trajectory across the continent. Equipped with an MBA from the prestigious Kellogg School of Management, Denloye blends academic excellence with practical experience to drive innovation and foster growth. His tenure at leading telecommunications giants, including Airtel and Etisalat, showcases his ability to navigate dynamic market conditions and deliver tangible results. Currently serving as the Regional Director of Meta in Africa, Enitan Denloye remains at the forefront of technological innovation, driving initiatives to empower businesses and drive economic growth. His visionary leadership and unwavering commitment to leveraging technology for societal advancement continue to shape Africa's digital landscape. Enitan Denloye's remarkable journey underscores his dedication to driving positive change and fostering innovation in Africa's telecommunications sector. With a relentless pursuit of excellence and a passion for empowering communities, he continues to redefine the boundaries of what is possible, propelling Africa towards a brighter future. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our guest for tonight, Enitan Denloye.
Yes. Welcome, sir. Welcome, Eniton
Yeah.
Denloye.
Thank you, Dipo. It's a pleasure to be on this show. And thank you to the co-host as well. Really excited for the invitation and looking forward to sharing some nuggets, my past experience, and looking forward to inspire everyone that's watching from different parts of the world.
Awesome, awesome. You are very welcome. And I can already see from that background, because I've been in a couple of them myself, that you're clearly in a hotel room. So, which part of the world are you? And let us know.
Yeah, so Dipo, you're spot on. I mean, my job entails like a lot of travel. I'm currently in Cape Town. You're right. I'm in my hotel room. Um, Here for client meetings, meeting with a lot of stakeholders, and it's been a busy start of the year. This is my fourth trip this year, and from Cape Town, I fly to Joburg tomorrow, and then to Lagos, same day tomorrow, back to Dubai on Saturday, and then next week back on the road again. Off to Barcelona, we have the Mobile World Congress, which I'll be attending on behalf of Meta, and then from there to Nairobi and then to Dubai. So always on the road, but it's a privilege. It's a privilege to be here.
Wow, wow, wow. It's a privilege. It's an honor for us to have you, a man of your stature, and how valuable your time is that you choose to take out. Not only the time that we have today, but the time that we also spend in preparation. I really want to honor you for that. And I pray that God blesses everything that you're sowing into us today, into all the people that are here live watching, that God sows that already back into your life. So let's already start because we've got a packed show. We've got a lot to unpack. We've got a lot of great nuggets, as we've already said before. So let's start with Meta, right? I'm sure there's a lot of people that have thought, hey, you know what? What's it like at Meta? What's it like working there? What is it like as a company? When I was doing my research, some numbers just basically stuck out at me. The amount of users that are on the Meta platform. So, for people that don't know, Meta is not just Facebook. Meta is Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, also Facebook Messenger, but
Yes.
a combined entity. And I think across all those platforms, they have 4 billion users. I think
Wow.
that is majority of the world, majority of the population of the world are on your platforms. That is crazy. Also, annual revenue last year, $135 billion. That is just astronomical. As we've seen in the intro video, you've worked for some great companies. I don't even think it was mentioned there. I think you also worked at Coca-Cola, Procter and Gamble, as well as the telecoms giants that were mentioned in the intro video. But how does working at Meta differ from all these other companies that you've worked for?
Thank you, Dipo. I think what sets Meta apart, and you just touched on it, is the impact and the scale. When you see 4 billion people on our platforms monthly, just to put it in perspective, globally, there are about 8 billion people. If you factor out, the really, really young population um, that won't be allowed on the platform, you're literally speaking to almost everybody that's within the
Wow.
age limit using our platforms. So there's a lot of impact. Also, if I take us back a little bit to COVID times, a lot of businesses, especially in Africa, were only able to survive because of our platforms. When you look at a platform like WhatsApp, a lot of the small businesses simply rely on WhatsApp to be able to reach their customers, to be able to take orders and whatnot. So that responsibility, I mean, it's a big one and it's a lot of impact. What's more exciting is where you see the future of all the growth coming from. It's from Africa. There was a study that was done recently that says cumulatively by 2050, the bulk of the growth that'll be coming, especially when you talk about youth, is going to be coming from this continent. Now, if you have all those people coming out of there, it's super important to have platforms like us to be able to empower them to be able to achieve the aspiration. I'll tell a story. I mean, working for Meta it's really, really exciting. And it all came together. It was last year. It was my first time going to the HQ, which was a Menlo Park. We had a leadership conference where all the senior leaders, came came together to strategize and align on what the way forward is. And the moment for me was during that conference, Mark Zuckerberg himself walked in. And it was the first time, being in his presence. And everything just came together to say, you know what? For every child out there, for every man out there, there's nothing that's impossible for you to achieve. It's about setting your mind to say it's possible. You have to be bold in terms of dreaming, put in the hard work, rely on God for grace and humility, and there's no mountain you can surpass.
Wow, that is awesome. That is awesome. That really reminds me, that's taking me back as you were speaking right there. I was just going back to 2 weeks ago with Victor Body Lawson, who was saying, with God you can go anywhere and you can do anything. And that really stuck with me. And that, like what you just said as well, that those words of faith and having just that belief in God that can carry you to really any room, even a room with the top executives of Facebook. That's grace and faith that took you there. And before we go into that, because we're gonna dive into that. I want to just open the floor to my co-host, Apostle Douglas. But before you go on, I just want to remind everybody that's watching, guys, please, this is interactive. Get your questions in for Eniton Denloye. If you ever wanted to know anything about being a top CEO, being a top director, executive level, especially at Meta, please put your questions in and we will get to them during the show. So, Apostle Douglas, if there's anything that you want to, any questions you want to ask.
Yes, sir. So with you starting, I want to know like who or what inspired you and what was your motivation to keep going, to keep pushing, to keep this drive going into the field that you're in.
Thank you. So I was born in Nigeria, in a small city called Ibadan, raised Christian family, and looking back, one of the things I reflect on was the fact that I was raised by a single mother. And there were five things, if I can reflect on, that I would say represent a common thread from my young days up till today that I live by. First one is hard work. Um, One of the favorite quotes I like, and it's from someone we all know, may so rest in peace, is Kobe Bryant. And Kobe says, talent is important, but hard work outweighs talent every time. So hard work was always something I saw from my mom. My mom was in the medical field. Growing up, right from probably when I was like 6, 7, I never remembered my mom having one job. She always had two jobs, always. And not just two jobs at any given point in time. She probably always had 2 or 3 businesses. So I learned that very early to say, you know what, hard work pays. But then what I also learned early as well was hard work is not enough. I'm sure people are like wondering, what do you mean by hard work is not enough? Grace is important. And grace is that undeserved favor that can be earned. It can only be given by God. And over time, why that's important is, in as much as I've worked hard, I've seen so many people as well that have worked really hard, but haven't really gotten as far as they should. So the grace, I call it the God factor, is really, really, really important as well. As a man of faith, I'm always giving it all back to God to say it's by your grace, it's by your grace. And even the Bible says, we shall live by grace through faith. And the third one as well, which is extremely important. A lot of people see people that are really successful, but what you find out is a lot of them have failed multiple times. So you should never ever be afraid of failure. You have to take the lessons. One of the sayings I like the most, and for me, when I meet with a lot of experienced people, I always want to understand their lessons from failure. And this quote says the master has failed more times than the beginner has tried. So a lot of times we only see, the successes, but a lot of times there are a lot of times when people have failed. But the honest truth is you can learn through it. Today, the way I call it fail fast. So in any role I'm in or in anything I'm doing, I call it fail fast, learn fast, quickly. Fail, learn from it, take the learnings, build it into it. So that's the third principle. The fourth principle that I would also say I took out from my mom, it's about giving, it's about helping, it's about inspiring others. My favorite quote is, I've never seen anyone being poor just by giving. So always find a way to give back, always find a way to sow seeds, always find a way to inspire. And the last one, that's for me, it's the gold standard, is always remembering that at best we're the vessel. The source would always remain God, the Father. And you always have to give the glory back to Him. So it's about constant mode of thanksgiving in every situation. When doors shut for me, that's when I get excited. People are like, "Are you kidding me?" Because I'm like, "God, you're about to do something bigger than what I'm imagining." I'm knocking on the door and you're saying this door is not big enough, so I'm going to shut it. And I'll speak to it tonight. There have been so many instances like that where we would shut the door. Earlier on, I didn't get it. I'll be disappointed, But now when doors shut, I'm excited. That's when I even give more thanks to say, God, take charge and just take control and reveal that which only you can do. Only you. Yeah.
Wow, that's
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Wow, wow,
yeah,
wow.
that is
Mm.
that is I think if you came just only for that tonight, you can already just go home and know you've got something. Seriously. Like that is profound wisdom. And a lot of these things a lot of people know, but to actually do it. But these are the keys to success. It's not knowing, it's not the knowing that brings success, it's the doing. And wow, there's just a lot of great nuggets that were released right there. And there's one I just want to jump on that really touched me. All of them are great, but the one that you spoke about failure, there's this quote from Michael Jordan. You already mentioned Kobe Bryant with the hard work, but here's one from Michael Jordan on failure. It says, "I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over again in my life. And that's why I succeed."
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that is definitely one. And that speaks also to me personally, because I'm cautious by nature, and I also want to get involved in business and start my own business at some point. But this one thing that always holds people back from starting business, and that's the fear of failure. And it's something that we need to learn to overcome. And I hope we're going to dig into that a little bit as we go on. But Evangelist, I'm going to come to you if there's anything that you want to make a comment on from those 5 keys that we released.
Hallelujah, hallelujah. Yes, yes. One of the remarkable things that I see nowadays is that people want to make quick money. Huh? And when we speak about money, everybody love money. I'm not gonna ask how much you make. I'm not gonna ask. No, no, no. That's would be rude. But as maybe you can explain actually from how it starts in the beginning, because there was most of the time, hey, you got plans, you see the blueprint already from where you want to go. But how did you adjust it? How did you get in the blueprint? And when actually it really start to run, when you see from now I'm on track.
Yeah.
What is the secret to it?
So honestly, I remember when I graduated college, I studied economics, and it was everyone's dream to work for Arthur Anderson then. I'm sure you all remember Arthur Anderson. It was
Mm-mm.
everyone.
Yeah.
And I remember that was like, for me, that was the career path. I felt that's where I wanted to go. And it started with failure, because even though I went through the stages, and the final stage I didn't make it through. And it was big disappointment because for me, that was the career I wanted for myself. And then I ended up during my youth service, which we call it in Nigeria, then in a small bank in Ibadan.
Mhm.
And during that time, there was a time where I had to draw strength from God because I couldn't imagine. I mean, I thought I had gotten it all together, I'd worked so hard. And that was when God started the journey and said, you know what? That's not the plan I have for you. And miraculously, I was walking and I was going through newspaper and I saw an advertisement, PNG, and something said apply. That's the job for you. And then I applied, and when I applied for the finance role because I was still stubborn. I was like, you know what, audit finance is where I wanted to be. So I did the test, everything. I passed it, and then interview for the finance role, I got dinged again.
Mm.
And then I was like, God, what's happening? You told me to apply. I was like, yes, I told you to apply, but finance is not where I want you to be. Eventually, one of the guys that I interviewed with said, you know what, we love you so much. We think there's a better team for you. It was the sales customer development. That was the easiest interview in my life. So when you walk in God's purpose, you'll just find out, it will just go before you. And just, I always say, it'll go before you and make every crooked path straight. It was so easy. Everybody I interviewed with
Hey.
loved me. It was favor. And then from there, they were the ones that picked me and said, you know what, you've done this for a year. Come to brand management, which is the core of PNG. And then in less than a year or two later, Coca-Cola came. I moved to Coca-Cola. And
Mhm.
then after spending a couple of years at Coca-Cola, I decided, okay, God said, you know what, it's time to move to the US. And I was like, okay, which school should I apply to? Because then I was wiser than say, you God tell me. And a lot of people that apply to business school end up applying to multiple schools. But I applied to just two schools. One was Kellogg because there was clarity, and I knew that was where God wanted me to. The second one was Emory, which was a Coke business school. When I
Yeah.
did my GMAT, I got a good score, but it wasn't even good enough. God said, that's enough. I want to use that score. That's what you're going to use to get in. And I applied with it, and I was one of the first to to get admitted. So it's about God's purpose. Is about walking in line with His plans for you, and
Mm.
relying on Him. And the more you do it, what I've found out is faith is when you're not sure of how something is going to happen, but you know it's going to happen. But after a while, once you're used to God's track record, it's a lot easier because you're like, you've always done it over the past, 10, 20 times. It just gets easier to have faith and celebrate failure because you're like, God, you want to take over, you want to do something.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Yes. Wow. Awesome.
If there is not a blueprint, then I don't know. It is very, you see, and again, we see that it is very important, to listen. And that's most of the time the problem of many men, to listen what God is saying at that season, at that moment. Wow.
I
Amazing. Thank
see.
you.
I see that we've got some comments, some great questions in the it coming through. But just before we go to the comments, I just want to touch on something that you said there. You said you had a low GMAT score, and for people that don't know, if you want to get into a good business school, like we saw, Aniton went to Kellogg Business School, especially in the US, you need to do the GMAT exam. And for those that have not tried the GMAT exam, I tell you, it's a very hard exam. And that GMAT exam is the reason I did not go to business school, because I tried it and I failed horribly. And my story with the business school ended there. So maybe there might be executive MBA in the future. But anyway, I tell you why this MBA, if you get a low score, your chances of getting to business school are like so slim. You basically, like Eniton said, you need God. So for God to tell him, hey, this low MBA score, I'm going to use it, it reminded me of the story of Gideon, where God says, Gideon was going 32,000 against an army of about 150,000. That is already a handicap. But God said, hey, that is still not enough. Lose 22,000. Then he went down to 10,000 against 150,000. God said, no, still too much. Come down even lower. And then he took 300 men and used 300 men to defeat an army of 150,000. And God says, then I will have the glory. So that is just your story of the GMAT is reminding me of the story of Gideon. And that is something that I feel like God can really, if it needs to be God, God will make a way. And he wants all the glory. So it doesn't matter what the odds are. And I'm speaking to myself because I'm very scientifically minded and I like to think, to have the favor mathematically, but God will use whatever he's going to use, whoever he's going to use. If it's a shepherd's boy, if you're the lowest of the low, God can do it. He really can. And I love that part of your story. And as you were speaking there, one thing that really struck me is the way you were talking about God. It wasn't the way a lot of people talk about God. Because a lot of people talk about God like he's some kind of genie, he's some kind of somebody that's not interested, somebody that should be just feared. You were speaking about God like he was your best friend. Really, like, I heard from God and God said to do this and God said to go there, but God, it's really inspiring. It's so clear to see you have a personal and deep relationship with God. And I think that is the source and the secret to your success. I don't know if you want to comment on that.
No, you're spot on, Deepa. I mean, I remember, so I was very fortunate to become born again when I was 11. And over time, there are times when you have your lows, you have your highs, but in all of it, God is very, very particular about us understanding his principles. And God is also very partial. I always say this, is extremely partial. Because that's what I call grace, by the way. It's undeserved favor. You don't earn it. You just decide who he wants to give it to. And what I've found most important for me when it comes to God is when I look at in the heavens today, what do they do 24/7? They just give him praise. You understand? Always realize at any given point in time, at best, I'm just a vessel. And at best, there's no one I can come across that's more than a vessel. There's only one source. Like nobody, like it's so clear. You always just have to understand he's the source, and that glory only belongs to him. You just have to be bold. And honestly, it becomes easier because the Bible says, I'll use the stupid things of the world to confound the wise. It would do things whereby you were like, God, you really want me to step back and you're going to make this work? And I'm like, yes. And the more he does that, the more your faith builds up to say, God is in the business. I always tell people, if it's easy, God is just going to say, there's no use. Because there might be questions to say, was it God? He likes the difficult things. So that's what I've learned over time. Some of the interviews I've gone for, and I'll feel I'm not qualified at all. Let me be honest. I'll be fretting overnight. Those are the interviews I'll go in there and they won't ask any technical questions. We just bond. Literally just bond. So God has a sense of humor, and it's just important to just give him all the glory back. For me, that's the blueprint for me. It would never share his glory with anybody. I say it again. It would never, not even with our kids. As parents, you get to a stage where you love your kids and your family so much, but God will tell you to say, hey, I'm still God, and I'm a very jealous God. All glory, belongs. And I have numerous stories over time whereby it's so easy for me now to say, you know what, God, when you shut it down, I'm excited because I'll just back out, say there's a track record. One of my favorite songs is Goodness of God. The song says, is goodness is running after me. It's pursuing you. And those kind of things are real life testimonies that you just have to experience to understand how God works.
Wow, that's one of my favorite scriptures. One of my favorite scriptures. The blessing. This is the blessings of the Lord will come upon you and overtake you. And I think that's where that song gets its inspiration from. Wow. One of my daily prayers, and I'm sure everybody prays and believes the same, that the blessings of the Lord will come upon you and overtake you. And when you have the mindset that Eniton has, which is basically give all the glory to God, let God be God, even above your children, above your job, no matter what it is, God is always number one. He doesn't share his glory. He doesn't share number one. He's number one, two, three, four, five, even. So, wow, what an amazing key. We're getting a lot of keys, and I hope you guys are taking notes. I'm trying to take notes as I'm doing this as well because I'm learning a lot. And now I'm just going to keep going on, but I think we have to go to the questions because some people have posted questions and it's only right that we address some of these questions. So guys, if you have any questions, please put them in. I think we've addressed that first one about what it's like to work at Meta. So if you joined a bit later, then you can watch this. It's going to be you can watch the replay, and definitely Eniton dived into that a little bit. This next one I think we will take, and that's saying, nice to hear about your experiences. Was there any time that you felt so challenged in your upward trajectory in your career? It's a great question.
It's actually, so there have been times, I'll use examples. So I remember there was a time where it felt I was moving backwards. And I'm moving backwards, it's all about the definition. So from my own standpoint, and I'll use specific examples. I'd worked for BAT straight from when I left McKinsey. I managed a team of 200 people. And then I left BAT, took some time off, wanted to spend more time with family. My wife only had one daughter. And then I then joined Etisalat, which was a really, really big brand in Nigeria, then telco. I moved from a team of 200 people to a much smaller team. My salary also, what's it called, reduced. But by the way, the job was still a really, really senior role. It was a director of brands and communications. And every time the devil came and is like, hey, you're God's chosen one, but it feels like you're going backwards. I just always reminded myself to say, there was a purpose for me to go to BAT, and I'd fulfilled that purpose. God opened another door. It was very clear to move to Etisalat, and I had to fulfill the purpose of God in Etisalat. From Etisalat, I moved to Airtel. It felt like a lateral move. But in all of that, God was preparing me for the Meta job. Because if you look at it, the evolution for me was from telco. I started with Etisalat. I moved to Airtel, which was all B2C. And then he just woke up one day and said, you know what? It's time to leave Nigeria. There's this job for you in Kenya, Liquid Telecom, Group CMO. It was more B2B, and it was also around technology. I was responsible for the branding of the company that moved it from Liquid Telecom to Liquid Intelligent Technologies. I needed to be on that path to get to the Liquid job, to be on the radar for the Meta role. So there are times when God would take you through an unconventional route. The most important thing for me is just understanding to say, God, I completely trust you. And always having a mindset of thanksgiving. Even days when you're tired, even days when you think, oh, you know what, this trajectory is not fast enough. It's just understanding that he has a purpose for you. And you might not get it, but just having that unbelievable trust in him to say it's going to do it. So I was at Liquid for just 2 years. And then the Meta opportunity came. It was quick, it was fast, quick. And then I played it back to say, if I didn't go through that journey, I wouldn't have been prepared for this. So for every role, God will take you through different turns. For me, is that unrelentless faith and belief to say, you see the end from the beginning. That's also how it makes sense for me. Because we can see the end, But he sees the end from the beginning, and he can plot it back and then order your footsteps for you to land where he wants you to get to.
And it's I'm literally like seeing your life through Bible scriptures as you're talking there. I'm just seeing like David when he was a shepherd, busy fighting the wolf, the bear, fighting the lion before he could take down Goliath. Joseph going through being a servant first in servant's house, and then being a prisoner, and then still being a prisoner but being put in charge of the prison. All of that leading up to a specific and an appointed role in the future. So I think that's a massive key. We're all on a journey, and it doesn't matter how your journey looks at this moment. Even it looks a little bit dark, draw inspiration from Eniton's story, draw inspiration from biblical stories like Joseph, like David, like Moses. Everybody had to go through a time of being in the wilderness before you get to the mountaintop. There's a time of going through the valley. There's a time that God will need to work on your character to get you to the place where you're ready to stand in front of kings. So if there's anybody, I'm getting encouraged, I'm getting hyped up. So I hope there's people out there that are getting value from this. This is awesome. So, and it's a question for you. I myself, I've been in a number of interviews and I've been successful myself. So I've learned a few things. I'm not the one sharing today, it's you. So I want to hear, you can't have the CV that you do and the success that you've had without being great at interviews. So I'm sure there are people on here that are watching that either have been on interviews or are going to go on interviews that want to hear, what are some tips the next time I go to interview that I can ace it?
So I think the biggest one for me is learn to say no. So I've probably said no to 95%, maybe even higher, of when I've been approached for jobs. You have to know what's for you. It's super, super important. Clarity. You have to play to your strengths. You have to understand how the role plays a bigger role. The other thing I always do is any role I'm interested in, I need to be able to see 2 steps after that. So the big thing for me is be very, and it takes grace. I'll go back to it, to be picky, because that means you're getting a lot of those opportunities. But say no if you feel is the wrong fit. So I've always played to my strength. And I'll give you an example. Even when I applied to Kellogg, it wasn't coincidence. Other people would have applied to Stanford or Harvard. I chose Kellogg because I'd worked for Coca-Cola, I'd worked for P&G in Africa. Kellogg is renowned for marketing. They love it. And I could see the strong fit to say, you know what, I'd rather apply to Kellogg than Stanford or Harvard. So understand what your value proposition is. If I could say it that way, understand what your value proposition is and pick the jobs or the interviews that you're very aligned to it. Where on paper, they'll say, I'm excited to speak to this person. The second thing is to prepare. You really, really, really have to prepare. You have to do a lot of research on the company. You have to be able to write out your stories. Most importantly, I tell people in every story, what matters most is impact. Impact, impact, impact. A lot of people think CVs are just a laundry list of everything you've done, or where you go to interviews, it's about everything you've done. No, it's about speaking to the ones that deliver the most impact. The fewer, the better. It's not about the whatever. And most importantly, as well, pray to say, God, just guide me. A lot of times you find out that some of the most difficult interviewers, when it's your turn, they would pick an interest in something about your resume, and you spend 40 minutes out of the 60 minutes discussing that. You understand? And that just makes it a lot more, it makes you more comfortable and and do research on your interview as well. I do it. A lot of times you want to make sure you can break the ice very quickly. I want to speak to ensuring that we're aligned. So if I'm interviewing someone and I feel this person has a strong telco background, I'll speak to it. If I look at the interview and I'm like, oh, you worked for P&G years ago, that's where I'll start from. You understand? Just to have common ground, because once you can break the ice and you're able to have that common ground, it's easier for you to also feel comfortable. The more confidence you have, the better you can perform. But overall, I also tied back there to say, you know what? If God says something is for you and it's purpose, trust me, you would get it. There was a role I interviewed once for, and the CEO had said, you know what, loved me, everything. The senior HR director was like, what if we give you a level lower than this? Will you take it? I said, no. Boldly, boldly, boldly. And by the way, the role that they were offering me lower was like a very senior role. But it was very clear in my mind to say, what I saw is for this senior role. And why will I shortchange God? If I'd said yes, they would have given me, but don't shortchange God. Just believe that's what God has in plan for you. Dream big and believe that the bigger it is, the bigger the testimony and the bigger people would understand the power of God. If the testimony is not big enough, some people will say maybe, maybe not. But there's some testimonies they'll be like, you know what, it could only be God. Forget it.
Wow, powerful stuff, powerful stuff. You know, I 100% agree with everything that you said there. And just to emphasize on one of the points that you made about breaking the ice, you know, I'd been most of my career the one doing being interviewed. Finally, I get to a point where now I get to interview some people, and really what I'm looking for in the interview is just, can I see myself working with this person? You know, because the person's CV has spoken for itself. That's why they're there. You know, you don't get to an interview without the person believing your CV and believing, hey, you can do what you said, because they look at your experience. So it's not really so much about, you know, your ability to do the job. It's really your personality, your character. Can I see myself working with you? And I think those are the things that sometimes we miss because we're so focused on the technical stuff. I have to prove that I can do the job. But, you know, I think if we get to a point where we understand the people interviewing us are people. And if you're in sales, you understand people buy from people. So it's all about being personable and giving them a good feeling that you're somebody they want to work with, is my own tip to add to that. I saw a great question coming in by Tosing Odumfa. Tosing, how's it going? Long time no see. There it is. He says, what's your personality type, and how did it impact your attitude towards work, romance, marriage, spirituality? How would you describe your personality type?
So that's a good one. So my personality, honestly, uh, I can be very intense, and I'm very intentional. And it's a double-edged sword, because when you're very intense and intentional, it's very easy for you to think it's you. It's all about you. You know, I did this. This was how I achieved this, and whatever. Over time, I've been able to channel the intentionality and that intensity, because God has broken me in many ways as well. There are times when I've been stubborn, and He said, you know what, I'll just step aside. When you're ready, you come back. So over time, I've understood the importance of channeling it. So I'll give you an example. I'm a big workaholic, I'll be honest, and I'll bring in a point. That's why if you look at my wife, my family, I mean, the rock, 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 because I have such a wife that understands. She knows her husband, you know, she gives me peace at home. She's always praying for me. She's always encouraging me, allows me to thrive, you know. So it's super important. Like I always tell people, I would not be 10% as successful as I am today without the wife God gave me. And that's also God understanding where He wants to take you to, and all of that. If I sum it all, for me is never believe anything is impossible. It's the audacity. And the reason why you have that audacity, I'll explain it, is I love to challenge God. It's God after all. Remember, it's God. If it's easy, why are you taking it to God? You can do it yourself. You can ask your mentor. So if you're building your faith, you understand, have a personal relationship with God. Talk to Him like, you know, your body's in bed, and say, God, I want you to do this. If you think this isn't what is right for me, do something bigger for you to take that glory. Just have that audacity all the time, because a lot of people just feel, no, it's impossible. No, I've had roles that have come to me that were like, wow, this is scary. And then I remember, like, what do you mean by scary? It's God. If it's not scary, then it's not God.
I think we can just end this program on that on that nugget, because that is so inspiring, so uplifting. You have challenged my faith. I am challenged to trust God more. I'm challenged to put God to test God in that way, to prove that He is God and He's bigger than, what's that scripture, that God who's able to do infinitely more than you think or imagine, he can do even more than whatever we think is the max that we can do or he can do. He can do even more. So, wow, you're challenging our faith, and it's on. Thank you so much. I hope everybody on here, faith has been challenged to believe God for more, to believe God is the God of miracles. He's the God of the impossible. He called Lazarus out of the grave, and he can basically do it for you. So, all those dreams, and I'm speaking to myself first and foremost, all those dreams that you have put in the shelf somewhere, that you thought, okay, maybe some point, sometime, maybe it's too big for me. Let's believe God. Let's believe God for great things. Wow. Man of God, thank you so much. That's been great. I just noticed we're coming towards the end, so I want to make sure that we wrap it up well, because there's some questions that I wanted to ask you, just about your legacy, you know. So when the sun starts to set on your career, what is the I remember you said, it was very short, but you said it, and I remember you said you think about the next role 2 steps in advance. So now, what is the 2 steps in advance for you after a great career? What is next for you?
So that's a very good question. And honestly, it's something I've been thinking about for a while, but it's getting stronger now. So I'm 47, 3 years from 50. And I'm super convinced from 50 is the face of giving back. Because I don't think God is doing all of this for me. No. Remember, you're the vessel. Think about it. You're the vessel. 100%. That's all we are. We're a vessel. So for me, legacy is to start preparing to say, God, what's the next phase? And for me, the next phase is giving back. How do you want me to do it? So one of the things he put in my mind 2 years ago when I turned 45, he said, go and start a foundation. Go and open. So I did that. And when I get those things, I don't need to have clarity. I'll just put it there, because the good thing, foundation is giving back. And the next thing for me is, what's the ministry? I don't think I'm going to be a pastor that'll start a church, no. But there has to be a ministry where you're going to inspire people, you're going to give back to people. Most importantly, you're going to bring people closer to God. The other thing he made very clear is to say, because there's a time I used to struggle with God, and I'm being vulnerable. And I said, God, are you trying to kill me early? Because things were moving very fast. And if you look at the Bible, people that moved really fast, always had a short time. Look at Jesus, look at John the Baptist, very short and very impactful. And God said, no, I'm not. The empowerment I'm giving you is because of the magnitude of the work I have for you. So even the financial empowerment, it's not for you. No, it's for my work. You understand? It's really, really. So the legacy for me is to get the clarity in the next 3 years where it can be super clear to say, you know what? The next 30 to 50 years, and I say 30 to 50 years, which is turning 80 to 100, it's possible, will be 3 times as impactful. And it would have nothing to do with me, because it's like God has watered this plant, and the reason why he's doing it is for that purpose. There's no other reason, because there are times when I wake up and I'm like, honestly, with all the companies I've worked for, that can't be the purpose. It's impossible. No, it's impossible for that to be purpose. It's using that to prepare you for a bigger purpose, you understand, to really, really impact lives at the end of the day. So prayerfully, that's something I really, really want to get clarity to be able to say, I'm waiting for the day when God says it's time to drop everything, literally. Whether I'm earning 6 figures or 7 figures, it won't matter because it's prepared you for it, and you drop it. And honestly, that is when you have the biggest fulfillment. Something just registered. The happiest and the most fulfilled period of my life was the time when I was in prayer department in City of David. I was in prayer development for 2 years. And if you understand what prayer is, we weren't praying for ourselves. We were praying for other people. During church, while the church service is going on, you're not in church. You're downstairs, you understand, in the room, praying for the church. But if I tell you, that was the most fulfilling period of my life. Fulfilling. Because it was God's plan. It was an act of service, and I just keyed into it. A lot of doors that God opened later on in my life was the seeds that were sown during that time. So for me, it's exciting to find that next purpose post 50, where you can just give back, especially when you're on the continent in Africa. I've lived in 7 countries. I've been exposed to so much. It can't just be for the purpose of corporate world. No. I'm super sure about that. It's about a bigger purpose where you can impact lives. It's about a bigger purpose where I can bring all the giants of the corporate world to that platform that God will say, this is the platform I'm using, you understand, to drive impact globally. So prayerfully, that's what I'm asking God for clarity, to say, God, let me see it loud and clear, because when it's loud and clear and bold, then you can aggressively chase it. Nothing can distract you. You have that conviction, and God will inspire you to be able to achieve it.
If we add anything on top of that, I think it will just be wrong. I think it is a very, very good place to let us soak in what you've just released, those seeds that you've just sowed into our hearts, into our spirits. Let those seeds soak into good ground. I pray and I trust that everybody that's listening on this platform is good grounds, and what Eniton has just released will be sowed into good grounds. Wow. I'm telling you, normally I wait a couple of days before I watch this show back. I say even tonight I'm going to watch this whole thing back, because so much of what you released is just gold. It really is. And it's scriptural, it's powerful, it's inspirational, and it works. So there's no how that everything that you've told us today, there's no how that if we implement it, it doesn't work and it doesn't change our life. This is truth, backed by faith, backed by God, and it works. So thank you so much for everything that you've released. I want to give a shout out to my co-host, Apostle Douglas, Evangelist Regilio. I want to thank every single person that has tuned in, everybody that asked a question, everybody that joined. And I want to encourage you guys, if you thought this was good, please tune in again in 2 weeks' time. We're wrapping up the CEO series. It's only 3 shows that we're doing in the CEO series this time. So the last show is with Mezwo Muneli, and it's in 2 weeks' time. It's the last show. But guys, please, apologies. It's the time is gonna change due to Mezwo's intense schedule. We have to do it an hour later. So it's gonna be at 8 p.m., not 7 p.m. like we normally do. Like so on the flyer, we will create a new flyer. It's just something that we had to change just recently. So we will make sure that we inform you all to know that it's gonna be 8 o'clock, but you don't want to miss that next and last episode of the CEO series. And we're going to announce a new exciting series coming up after the CEO series. You don't want to miss it. So thank you, Aniton, once again. This has been great. This has been amazing. I've been so impacted. I'm so encouraged. And I trust that everybody else listening has been as well. And thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, guys. Tune in again in 2 weeks' time.
God bless. Thank you.
God bless.
Hey, you! Yes, you! The real you.